Yeah. So, hi Billy.
Hi.
Great to see you here in Stockholm.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite cities.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to watch your clinics and to hear tell your stories and to pick your brain about all of these
Very good.
amazing things that you do on the bass.
50 years of bass, so
Yeah.
I got a couple things.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I have a few questions that I've been thinking about because I've seen so many interviews with you over the years and so many great questions that you've answered. And there are some like, what questions do I want Billy to answer that I haven't heard him talk about? So I was thinking, do you remember your first ever gig?
Yes. Yes, it was at the Beef and Ale, which is a club in Buffalo, with a band called Opus 1. It's a horn band. And I'd done a few things before, but they weren't actual real gigs. Played at a church dance. I did a folk mass at the church one time where I grew up. And but my first real gig with a real band, Opus 1, we had 4 horns, 3 singers, guitar, bass, drums, keyboard. So there was 11 guys in the band.
That's awesome.
I think I made $4.50.
Yeah.
Was my take on that.
Sounds about what we make today, playing a 4-piece gig.
Time is going backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember the first bass line that you ever like mastered or like could play?
Yeah, I remember hearing the Blues Magoos, "We Ain't Got Nothing Yet." Do 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 do. That's why when Deep Purple came out with that, I said, "Wait, that's the Blues Magoos." I was upset that they were using the Blues Magoos line because it's exactly that. They made it a little different.
That's awesome.
Blues Magoos was many years earlier.
Yeah.
And then also a bunch of lines from the Yardbirds. Paul Samwell Smith was the bass player, and I was a huge fan. I still am of everything he did in that band. It was great. So I learned some of that stuff too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you played with Opus 1, yeah. When you played with Opus 1, how did you learn the songs? Because like considering there were horn stuff, did you like get sheet music or no?
I never knew how to read. I just had to learn everything by ear. They had music charts written out because they had to listen to the record and then write out charts for the horns. But the bass, drum, and guitar, 3 of us, we all went to school together. Actually, almost all of us came from the same school, Kenmore East High School. So we just learned the songs by ear. You know, even though they're a little complicated. The one song by Chicago, off their first record, had a song called Introductions.
Oh yeah.
And they had a section that was in 19/8.
Oh yeah.
So it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2. And we just learned it. Didn't think anything different. And I had listened to a lot of Frank Zappa, so a lot of my 7s and 5s made sense, even at the very beginning like that.
That's awesome.
So it was pretty wild.
Yeah. When you play, because you play with Sons of Apollo quite a lot now, when you play those complicated riffs, do you ever how do you internalize the rhythm and the groove?
You just kind of, it's funny, I don't count. I just get the feel of what that pulse is, because 7 has a pulse.
Yeah.
It's just an unusual pulse.
Exactly.
It's not a natural. When you walk, you're going 1 2 1 2. 7 is not that.
No.
But I was fortunate to get into a lot of music that was odd time very early by a lot of people that could do it well. So when Genesis with Peter Gabriel would do an odd time, it didn't sound odd.
No.
It flowed beautifully. A lot of early Frank Zappa stuff. There was a song he did called Flower Punk off We're Only in It for the Money. And Jazz Magazine Downbeat used it as an example of doing 5s and 7s.
Yeah.
Because it was all built out of the verse was I think 4 measures of 5 and 2 measures of 5 and then 2 measures of 7. And done to the chords of Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix. And it was, and I learned it very young. And so it became really natural for me to do that Zappa 5 and 7. Yeah. And it was, it came in handy later when I did a tour with Steve Vai. And one of his songs had that Zappa beat as a solo section. So it was actually easy for me to solo over.
That's great.
And he was surprised that it was, because we both know that we both like Frank Zappa, but he didn't know how much I knew of it. But he wrote that piece. It was very similar to it. So I could solo over it easy. And I remember he'd turn around with me. He's like, wow, how did you know this? It's funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I was thinking about, because you play with Mike Portnoy quite a lot.
Yeah.
And you've done so for quite a bit now. You did the Who tribute,
Yeah.
and you've done the Wiener Dogs, which is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Me too.
Yeah, and now you're doing Sons of Apollo, and the relationship between a bass player and a drummer, that's like, it's
the most important in the band.
yeah, I agree with you. And when you and Mike rehearse and when you play together in both bands, do you have like a different approach, or is it pretty much the same?
It's the same. It's more song to song
Yeah.
than the band. And we have developed, and it happens with several drummers that I've played with in my life, get this ESP,
Yeah.
where he'll play a drum fill, a pattern, and I will play the exact same pattern on bass. But I didn't know he was going to do it, and he didn't know it, and it just happens.
Yeah.
And you'll see us when we're live. I turn around and look at him like, wow, that was, I can't believe we both did it. And sometimes it's difficult or unusual, or it's the first time it ever happened. Yeah. And it was quite exciting to have that. I've been lucky to play with great drummers, Mike, of course, being one of them. But most of the time when I do get a good relationship with a drummer, that happens a lot. Because I watch drums very closely as a bass player. Drums are my thing.
Yeah.
And because that's the thing everything is built on.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very important to me. I really love playing with Mike, and we have a great time doing it.
Yeah, you can really tell when you watch the Wiener Dogs DVDs and now the Sons of Apollo DVD as well. It's like great to see you, even when you do these complicated riffs like Labyrinth, and it's a blast to watch. You're like standing there smiling, like, oh crap, I need to step up my game.
A couple of them were quite tough to do, and we would. I'd go over to the drummers and watch him really close, and he'd watch me. At the end of it, we'd slap five that we got through, because and a lot of the reasons for that is sometimes those lines are built on keyboard, and keyboard and a fretboard are different. Yeah, you can do most everything on each, but sometimes some things are built on keyboard that are very difficult to do on fretboard, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, so that's what made it a little funny to me. And it was an odd way of splitting that time in the notes that it did it. Yeah. So I got it, but it took some work. Yeah. But I like that. I like when it's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And because that's what I find so inspiring about you and your approach to music. And I really, I try to be somewhere near that. Like
it's good to challenge yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I see a lot of great players that never really challenge themselves. No. They kind of stick with what they know and what they do. And that's good. And there's a real art to that, and everybody's does their own thing. But I do like sometimes to be up against something that's tough, that's hard to do. Yeah. Even if I don't necessarily really like it, but I know I want to do it because I need to learn something from it. So fortunately, Sons of Apollo is very enjoyable to play in that band. We have some great songs and great stuff. Bumblefoot is amazing. Jeff Scott Soto, Derek, really, it's a good situation. But like as you said, the Winery Dogs is a little special to me because it's a three-piece band. That's kind of how I grew up. Yeah, three-piece. So, but with Sons of Apollo, I pulled back because I know there's a lot of keyboards and low end, a lot of stuff. So I purposely pull way back, and I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it, and hearing the whole band as an ensemble is cool. But with Winery Dogs, there's a three-piece thing. It's pretty cool.
There is room to breathe when you play in a three-piece.
Yeah.
I find out as well. Like you can spread your wings in a way, like sonically.
A lot more, yes. Yeah. There's certainly plenty of times with Sons of Apollo we do that too, but it's two different things. Yeah. And I like that. It's not really the same thing, which is cool. They're both wonderful. Yeah.
So speaking of challenges, is there like a mountain that you feel like I want to do that? Because you talked in the DVD that it was your first time playing with a symphonic orchestra.
Yeah.
Do you have like, I would love to do this gig?
Well, I listen to a lot of classical music, probably more than anything. In my huge music collection I have on my iTunes, 2 terabytes, I'd say almost a third of it is classical. That's a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I learned a lot of pieces by ear some Brandenburg concertos, some Debussy, some other composers that I love. There's a couple of Bach pieces I'd like to really learn well. That I know when I see a cellist or a violinist or a violist, or from a classical background, I know there's a real musician.
Yeah.
Because they really, it's an incredible undertaking to learn that and have to play it perfectly every time. I'm mostly an improv guy, so if I slip or slide or something isn't right, I'll make it sound right. But I'm sure classical players do too, but I can't imagine how.
We don't know how, but
Yeah, it's incredible. So it's great to sit down and challenge yourself with something like that and get it correct. It's and also I'm not so much a jazz guy, but to learn some jazzy thing, it's a whole other world.
Yeah.
I see jazz players like Jeff Berlin, for example, is quite an accomplished jazz player, and he'll go to some note, and I go, I would have never gone to that note, but he does it, and it sounds right.
Yeah.
If I would have done it the same note, it would have sounded wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's a magic thing that happens with jazz players. So I like to learn more about that too.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Would you like to do, let's say, a concerto doing some Bach pieces with an orchestra? Would that be something that I would like?
I would like to. There's a part of one of the Brandenburg concertos that I knew part of it for years, but I didn't know the entire thing. So I sat down and I learned the rest of it. And it would be really tough because it's way out of the range of the bass. Done on strings which are tuned in fifths.
Yeah.
So it's quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it. I've been playing it for a few years now. So hopefully someday I might pull it out live.
Yeah.
Be cool.
That's one of my favorite stories about this cellist at 94 years old or something. They asked him, why do you keep practicing? Because I feel that there's an improvement every time I do it. So that's,
It's true.
Yeah.
I practice more now than I ever have in my life on bass. I spend hours and hours and hours. And it's also very fine-tuned, focused practicing.
Yeah.
It isn't just noodling around. It has a purpose, and there's sections, and there's things I do, and ways of testing what kind of a level I'm at. I'll play a thing and see how good I can do it, and I know if I make a mistake, I'll know what I need to work on. And it's quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Do you record yourself a lot at home in your studio and whatnot, and just sit there while practicing? Do you record yourself and look at the wave files like some people?
No, but what I do all the time is I have my selfie video, and I'll set it up so it can see me, and I'll hit start, and I'll explain what I'm doing. Okay, here's the thing. This is a variation on the exercise from yesterday, but it starts with this finger and goes across that way, and then I'll play it. And I got hundreds of tapes like that explain that. Or a song idea. The verse is going to be like this, but when the chorus comes, just prior, a little pre-chorus is going to be this, and then I'll play it and explain myself. So I write like that too.
Yeah, I mean, cell phones have really changed the way I think many musicians write these days.
Well, I always wrote. I was always by ear, so in the old days I had a little cassette recorder, and I'd hit record, and I'd say, and I would speak sometimes. Okay, here's the chorus to the song from yesterday, and make a few mistakes, but you understand what it is. So when you go to the band, you go, this is the chorus sounds like this, so we can work with it like that. So it's been going on for quite a while, but the phone makes it easier because with the video, I can see my fingering also.
Yeah, exactly.
That helps.
Especially when you do crazy stuff that you're like, how did I do that harmonic?
A lot of times I don't know how I did it, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I'll see there's a gentleman who's been posting, he scours the internet for things about me that I've never seen.
Yeah.
Or live shows that I've never seen before, and he posts them. And I'll see sometimes a solo from 30 or 40 years ago, and I don't know how I did that. But I'm so glad it's video.
Yeah.
I can say, aha. Because there's so much that I've forgotten that I don't do anymore.
Yeah.
That I hear it again, I go, what? Why did I stop doing that? It was pretty cool. So it's always, I'm so glad that he does that. I gotta think of a great gift for him, because because I'll see it and it'll actually help my playing now, because I remember, oh yeah, I used to do this thing, and go back to it. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of things that you normally, I've seen you do it once in a video, and it's Steve Vai at Live at the Astoria DVD when you play with a pick live, and just for like shits and giggles, essentially. Do you play with a pick like on bass?
I don't, but I'd like to do it sometimes because it makes your hands do something different. Your left hand is responding to what you're plucking, and your right hand is responding to what the left is fingering. But they do have kind of an interaction. When you switch to a pick, left hand, I notice it starts to get different. Yeah. So I purposely do that sometimes. I'll stand with a pick and play a thing, just to see how the left hand is working. Because sometimes I think players can find that some things you do will obscure the faults, and your hands will kind of make up for it, so you don't really notice it. But you go to a pick, and then you'll notice that more. So it's kind of interesting. So I write on guitar a lot, so I pick, but it's mostly strumming. It's not. I don't play lines on guitar. It's mostly chords and strumming, coming up with songs. But it's cool to play with a pick. In the very old days, we would do the Who Live at Leeds medley, which started with My Generation and went into the Tommy from the Live at Leeds album. And when I would do the solo, the guitar player would give me his pick. And I would do it on pick. I don't know if John did it on pick or not. He may not have.
I think he like altered, actually. I've seen clips of him doing it with his fingers.
I think in the beginning he did it with a pick, and then later on he was...
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'd take the pick to do that solo and dramatically throw it into the audience. Okay, carry on.
Don't need it anymore. Here you go. Yeah.
Here's one more, right in the eye.
Yeah. So there was this story about Steve Harris on the first Iron Maiden album. When they got into the studio, the producer was like, "You should play with a pick. Here, play with this." Have you ever encountered that?
No, because before I got to record, I was performing constantly, and we recorded we took like 2 nights off from playing to record. So my hands were like steel, and my calluses were super hard. And a few months ago, I did a rock and roll fantasy camp in Nashville. And if those that don't know, the musicians are the counselors. Yeah. And then you get your campers. And you got to teach them to play a song and get them up on stage and perform. It's quite amazing because sometimes you get somebody that can't play at all, and you got to think of something. Yeah. And sometimes you get good players. Yeah. This camp I had good players, so we were practicing some songs, and there was no bass player, so I was going to do the bass with my campers. And 3 or 4 guys, they're all musicians from other bands, famous bands and famous guys that you would know, would knock on the door and say, "What, are you using a pick?" I go, No, it's my fingers. There's another, "Hey, are you using a pick?" So they said, "It sounds like you're using a pick." I go, "Well, that's because my hands are calloused." So I never had that problem. But if somebody wanted me to use a pick for that tone, I would not be opposed to it. I don't like that thing, "Oh, you play pick here." No, exactly. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Yeah, I agree. Paul McCartney used a pick, and he's amazing. Yeah. A lot of guys did, and it was just awesome. It's a different thing, a different sound. It's totally cool. Same with a 4, 5, 6 string bass. Exactly. Play whatever you want. It's all good. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of 5 strings, the double neck. Yeah. Do you because I know that you've been recording with Sons of Apollo now, the new album, which I'm really looking forward to.
I finished all the bass on it.
That's awesome. Did you use the double neck or did you use the BAD bass? Yeah.
No, I use the BEAD 4-string bass, but I have one from Yamaha. It's a super long scale, which is pretty cool, and it's the only one that exists. And it's really beautiful bass. They made all bird's eye maple on it. It's just great. It plays fantastic. So it's very similar to the BEAD bass. To explain what that means is the notes are tuned B, E, A, D, like the last 4 strings of a 5 or 6 string bass, where the normal bass is E, A, D, G. So on the double neck, one is tuned normal, and the other one is tuned BEAD. Because to solo on the BEAD bass, I can do it, but it's so low it's hard to really tell what's going on. So I have the regular bass there for some parts and other songs, and then I switch to almost all the Sons of Apollo stuff is in the low tuning. Yeah. So the advantage of the extra long scale is those strings are tighter, because a lot of stuff is written on keyboard low on the bass, and you can't really that's why a lot of keyboard players, the left hand is the slower hand. Yeah. The right hand is your fast jam because you can't hear fast notes low. It's just the nature of the frequency. The frequency is still going while the next note starts, and they mix themselves up. So unfortunately, some of the stuff is written really fast and complicated things that are way low.
Yeah.
So the only way to really get them accurately is to get those strings tighter.
Yeah.
So I strung it up with heavy strings, nice and tight, and that was the only way to really pull those off so you could really hear the note definition note to note. Otherwise, it would have been a little floppy.
Yeah.
So I used that bass.
Have you tried multi-scale basses like the Dingwall and whatnot? Have you tried those? Fan fret.
No, but I tried the True Temperament.
Yeah.
That's from here in Sweden,
Yeah, exactly.
right? What a genius!
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fantastic.
It's like a church bell.
It really is, and every chord is right in tune. And on bass, there's a couple of chords I always test intonation with. If I play "Watcher of the Skies" by Genesis, that chord, that first chord, it's always out of tune on every bass. On the True Temperament, it's not. It's fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you have one of those in your studio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, they made a Yamaha neck with no frets and sent it to them, and they were very kind to get that in my hands. It's fantastic. Yeah. Really, really great. Really wonderful. Especially if you're playing with keyboards, because keyboards are generally right on.
Yeah.
And the bass, you'll find some little notes there. It's interesting to look at the frets because they bend the frets. It's amazing how out of tune some notes are. You don't realize.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's pretty cool.
And we always get the blame for being out of tune when you play with a keyboard player.
Yeah.
I did that once. I played with in a fusion band way back when, and we were rehearsing, and they were like, "Yeah, your bass is out of tune. You need to intonate your bass." I was like, "Yeah, I just set it up. I don't know what's wrong."
Look at the tuner; it's right on.
Yeah, and it turns out the keyboard player had accidentally hit the transpose button for like 2 cents, so everything was out of tune. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for doing that to you." Speaking of keyboards, Niacin. Do you have any plans on doing something?
Plans right now. I think the keyboard player is kind of semi-retired, so we'll see. Yeah, I'd love to do some more someday. Dennis Chambers.
Yeah. Oof.
What a genius! I love playing with Dennis. I saw him recently, Dennis and Victor Wooten together, and they're just great. So awesome. Yeah, so great. So I hope to have a chance to play with Dennis again, in Niacin or somewhere else.
Dennis is such a great player. I remember I sent you this clip of the Brecker Brothers in Barcelona when they do this song for Barry, and he gets into the double kicks in the end. It's like, oh my, he's
so good.
He's stellar. Yeah,
he changed my life.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Distortion because it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. I can't play without it. I discovered a few weeks back. It's like,
it does add a harmonic component to the bass, especially if you split things up. That really turns it kind of almost cello or soprano sax or alto sax. You get this component to the note that always reminds me, like I used to do with the volume knob, do cello lines, and people that didn't know, they were like, it sounds exactly like a cello. Yeah, it's because of the distortion. You get that harmonic content. And it's really a great thing. Straight up, totally clean bass is fantastic too, and everything has its place. But especially coming from a three-piece band, as we already mentioned, you need kind of more content than just a single note.
Exactly.
You know, I'll hit an octave at the same time, maybe fifth octave to make it a chord, but even single note split between low and high and half of the high distorted really creates a huge sound. And most bass players that try it end up using it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. Back in the old days, we opened up for a band called the Stampeders. I think they're a Canadian band. I think they had I think their hit was Sweet City Woman. Anyway, we opened up for them. They were just, regular rock band. They didn't know us. We played. But the guy saw my P bass with the EBL pickup. And a few months later, I saw him on television. The bass player had the same exact thing.
That's wonderful.
And then I think it was for Aerosmith. We opened up for Aerosmith. And they started putting a cabinet in a anvil case for Tom Hamilton that was like a guitar amp overdriven. And they would mic that and mix that in with this tone. And he's got a great tone to start with. Tom Hamilton is so awesome, great player. Often overlooked, but those first couple of Aerosmith albums, I love his playing so much.
Rock solid.
It's really cool. But so a lot of people have a lot of soundmen that work with me. You go off and they're mixing the bass. They go, "Could you put some distortion on that?" So the EBS pedal, that's what I'm here. It's a perfect way to blend it in, so that it doesn't take away your normal real bass tone. Because when you lose that, you're doomed.
Yeah, you're fired.
The perfect example is "Dance to the Music" by Sly and the Family Stone. When he switches to that distortion, and the bass goes away.
Yeah.
All you hear is that little distortion sound, because when you run a whole bass through a distortion pedal, that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So the EBS does a great job of splitting that up and letting your normal tone come through and dial in how much you want or what kind of distortion, and it's been very successful for them.
Yeah.
Was your first distortion unit the Pierce, or did you use anything before that, before you discovered the Pierce?
I just used amps up loud. I had the SVTs. I had the top SVT cranked with all the bass turned off.
Yeah.
And the bottom one, low, the bass turned on. So super clean low, and then with that mid-range switch over the mid-range, when I put it on high, it would be clean. In middle, it would be the My Generation solo. So, but the SVTs were difficult to maintain traveling in a van night to night. The tubes would shake. We'd have a problem with the speakers blowing a lot. So I eventually went to Pro Audio Gear. I started getting custom preamps, and then the nightmare began.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm still, a guy just found a Furman PQ3. It's their first parametric equalizer preamp. And he put the Pierce distortion unit inside it. And when I get home, I'll get it. So we just to try it. But I'm so glad now the Helix put the Pierce inside, and it's great.
Yeah,
so the Helix I've been using it on the road for the last couple of tours, and it's been incredible.
Yeah.
Everything is there. Turn it on.
Yeah.
If you want to do a couple changes, save it to another spot, change your things. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And shout out to Mr. John Willis, who's helped both of us so much with the Helix. It's crazy. Like, I wonder when he sleeps, because I think that I spend much time with the Helix, but it's like, I discovered this. Like, how, when?
Yeah, he's been a huge help, John. I really appreciate it. He came over to my house. We went over a couple of things with the patches, so we understood our process better, and we're going to do it again. And we're going to get together and go over some more things, especially with the new Helix Stomp, too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's great to have a network of people, yourself, John, a bunch of other guys that we communicate with a lot.
Yeah.
And people come up with some great ideas. John has come up with some brilliant ways of approaching the Helix.
Yeah.
And the Fletcher-Munson curve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I applied it to my preset. I was like, I can't believe it. I'm hearing myself. I haven't done that since I was ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people that don't know, it's a little complicated. Google Fletcher-Munson curve.
Do that and get back to me in the comment section. Yeah,
so pretty interesting. And naturally, and John pointed it out, and I didn't really realize I was naturally doing the Fletcher-Munson curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it really is, and funny you say for the first time you can really hear yourself. My goal was always to just be able to hear the notes so I could play the notes the way I wanted to play them.
Yeah.
And then that was the tone.
Yeah.
And if you needed, and the easy thing about my setup, well, it's good, but we need more low end. More low end, there you go, you got it. It's still all the same for me, and I give you more low end.
Yeah.
Easy, So it's an interesting evolution through the years. All the gear and all the amps, the speakers and cabinets, and how it's gone along, and it's come down to
a small unit in the backpack.
And now the
me and Henrik Linder were doing some videos this Friday, so I filled up all of my memory cards. So I had to empty all of them before this. So
great. How's he doing?
He's doing great.
What a great player.
Yeah, stellar player. So we demoed some new stuff that I can't talk about yet, but it was not on camera at least. But it was great fun, just sitting there next to each other and just trying this gear out because we're so different in our approach
Yeah,
to playing.
Yeah, everybody's different, and it's great to see. It's so amazing now with the tools we have on the internet. You can see exactly what someone's doing with their hands and with their, you know everything about their string. Because when I grew up, we didn't know anything about anything.
No.
We would just see a guy on stage, maybe.
Yeah.
And there was no video on TV. Well, you see somebody out like maybe at one time or another, but we had to kind of figure it out.
Yeah,
but now it's so easy for people to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and I love that, rig rundowns, everything. Like
it's great.
you can find everything. Like, why does this guy sound like this? Well, it's in his hands, of course, but there's this component in his gear that is so
That's true.
It's
you begin to see how much of it is your hands.
Yeah.
And to a large degree, it's almost all your hands. I know if I'm in good shape, all the gear sounds great.
Yeah.
If I'm in bad shape, I start tweaking because it doesn't sound right. It's not the gear.
Exactly.
It's your hands. So that's a good thing to know, because that gives the power back to us. It isn't a big, huge pile of gear and digital this and digital that. It's really what your hands are doing.
Yeah.
I think the gear helps as a way to hear it better, to reproduce what you're doing better. It moves you in different directions as an artist, but it is in the end all your hands. And the fact that that's a truism, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm pretty done now. I think I feel I've picked your brain enough.
Well, good. Well, there's plenty. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
We'll come up with another line of questioning and go deeper at some point.
Way deeper. Talk about the old Chicago albums and whatnot. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Billy.
Thank you very much.
It was great. My hand is all cold now for holding the microphone. So, thank you.
So next time we'll do part. Will be part 3.
Yeah.
Great.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then 10 years from now we'll do a box set.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. So, thanks, Billy. Thank you. Bye.